Considerable attention from the world's media, both written and electronic, is the World Cross Country Championships, now one of the most important and sought-after titles in track and field. It's widely regarded as one of the hardest races to win in athletics because it brings together some of the best marathon runners in the world, like Carlos Lopez and Rob de Castella, with speed merchants from the track. In fact, the man who won the title last year, John Ngugi from Kenya, was at the time the African 1500-metre title holder. New Zealand now annually sends a team to this championship. We've had mixed success, our women faring considerably better than our men in this cutthroat competitive sport. In recent years, the men's event has been dominated by the Africans. The Kenyans and the Ethiopians having won the men's team title every year since 1981. The individual title last year went to a little-known 23-year-old Nairobi civil servant, John Ngugi. The women's title for the past 2 years has been won by a teenager from Africa, Zola, now running in her adopted colours of England. The team title last year was a very close call, with England just edging out New Zealand in controversial circumstances. Unfortunately, missing from the New Zealand women's team this year was our highest place getter last year, Christine McMeekin. So the Kiwi Challenge this year was headed by Mary O'Connor, Gail Rea and Glenys Croon.
We have 2 laps of this course, specially designed for these 1987 World Championships to be negotiated by the ladies. And they have these special starting gates installed here in Warsaw for the first time in these IAAF Championships. Try to make sure everyone gets a fair start. So they're away then in its 1987 Women's Championship. The reigning champion, Zola of England, who has won for the last 2 years, not here today. She has an injury problem and she's not able to chase that 3rd title, so the individual champion today will be a new name on the trophies. But the American team very, very determined to try to get the team title back, which Zola led England to in 1986 in Neuchâtel in Switzerland, the last championships. So that is likely to be a very close team competition. What happens is that each nation puts 6 runners in, and the first 4 home score. And what they do is they add the positions of the first 4 runners together, and the team with the lowest total wins. Runners just sorting themselves out now. It's a very tight, twisting course here, and there are 12 man-made obstacles around the course, which is a little bit disconcerting for the runners. They'll be, in just a moment, going up to a bank there, and that's Ingrid Christiansen on the right in the red for Norway, a lady who has dominated world women's distance running for so long, and yet she's never won this title. Very keen to emulate her countrywoman Greta Weitz, who's not competing today, by winning that title for Norway, but very early days yet. Also in the front there, in the blue, another one of the favourites, Liz Lynch of Scotland, and it's Lynch moving into the lead there now, chased by Christiansen, with Leslie Welsh of the USA in 3rd place, and they are beginning to stretch out this large field. 2 laps in total of this course to be negotiated, and they're just coming up to one of the obstacles which filled a lot of the girls with some concern when they were inspecting the course yesterday. They're like mini steeplechase barriers, just 60 centimetres high, but very solid, made of timber. And the athletes yesterday were certainly eyeing those very closely. So Lynch of Scotland, who really has made dramatic progress this year, she's only competed in these championships once before, and that was in 1982 when she finished 65th. And yet in the last 12 months she's made such progress that she is one of the firm favourites here. She's beaten Ingrid Christiansen very recently, a 10-kilometre road race, so she's shown her ability at very high levels, and she's not wasting any time. She's unbeaten, in fact, this winter on road or cross-country, and I think determined to put her mark on this race very early on. The ground they're just going through there is very heavy indeed. You can see these runners, who are the best runners in the world, having a lot of trouble keeping their rhythm going and keeping their shoes on as well, I think, because it's very sucking mud. And last year that wasn't a problem for Zola, of course, who ran in bare feet and managed to cope with the mud, but today the leading runners all wearing shoes. This actually is about the best part of the course for running firmness. It's very damp and muddy out on the course. They are actually running in front of us in the main stand now, and this is very well kept grass here at the Śląsk Hippodrome, Poland's leading horse race. which has been adapted for these World Cross Country Championships. There's Krishna Wood, just ahead of Paula Ivan of Romania. And it's very important for all these runners. We see the several Americans there following up Welsh and Jennings, and here 110 Rosa Motta there, the European marathon champion. Very important that they keep the scores down by running closely together. They'll be helping each other around this course, getting over these obstacles, which really are not individually very difficult, but taken one after another, they are very difficult. Here's Lynch heading up that bank there, approximately every 200 meters around this course. Suddenly an obstacle, whether it's a ditch or a log jump or a man-made bank like the girls running up at the moment, suddenly faces them, and that really destroys their running rhythm. And stop and start again. It's almost like getting up out of an armchair every time they hit one of those obstacles. Lynch still striding out smoothly there. She comes from Dundee in Scotland. And every one of these banks that she is going up now seems to be draining energy from her legs. The distance that they're running, just over 5 kilometers, is not that great. There are many people who would like to see a longer race for the women in these World Championships, but I think with the added obstacles, and remember there are 12 obstacles on each lap, and the ladies are doing 2 laps, so they've got 24 obstacles to negotiate, that this makes it seem much further than the 5 kilometers. Ingrid Christensen, who holds the world records for the 5,000 and 10,000 meters on the track and for the marathon, seems now to be closing that gap, I'd say. And Lynch is suddenly not looking quite as comfortable. There's someone just dropping out there, that one of the Polish athletes just dropping out. That's Burbach, Poland, we saw dropping out there. Be disappointment for the home spectators here. And that gap has definitely closed now. Look, Christensen has got some 15 meters behind Lynch now. It was 40 meters earlier on. Lynch, I think, is aware of the danger. She may have caught sight of Christensen out of the corner of her eye, and that may just have inspired her to go harder towards the finish. They're getting very, very close now towards the finish. But, oh dear, getting up that bank was hard work there for both of the girls. They will be coming back onto the racecourse in front of us in the main stand here and racing the last 400 meters just on a flat, open piece of grassland, and it seems as though that is going to be where the race will be decided, because Christensen can see Lynch. Lynch can't see Christensen coming up behind her. And can the 24-year-old girl hold on to this lead that she has? It would be a terrific improvement if she was able to win this. As I said before, she was 65th in 1982 in this race and hasn't raced it since. She's been at college in America for several years. So she really shouldn't be leading this field in any case, given her past record in the field. But Christensen now seems to be suffering a little bit, and the fast approaching figure of Annette Sergent of France there is closing on Christensen and certainly threatening for the silver medal, I'd say, at this point. Very soon they'll be coming into the home straight, which they're doing now. Lynch can see the finish now. She can see it. It's about 400 meters ahead of her. But just look at Annette Sergent there on the left-hand side of the picture. She is really coming very, very fast at Lynch, and I don't think Lynch knows she's there. Annette Sergent, the French champion, is going to take an amazingly upset victory here over Lynch. It looked as though Lynch had got it, but Annette Sergent, 24-year-old French girl, French champion, she was third in this race last year, finishing very, very strongly. Lynch just can look up at her and say goodbye, really, because the race is over, that Sergent is going to win a terrific victory here for the French. The French not noted for their cross-country successes in the past, but this is a most dominating performance here. Sergent delighted and surprised, I think, a little bit to win that. She seemed to get really inspired in the closing straights there, and Lynch is all in. She's given everything. Perhaps she set off a little bit too early.
And no one was more surprised with her win than Annette Sergent herself, who said afterwards she hadn't the faintest idea she was going to win. Officially second was Liz Lynch in 16 minutes and 48 seconds, the woman who edged out Anne Ordain, you may recall, for the gold medal at the Commonwealth Games last year in the 10,000 metres on the track, and the incomparable Ingrid Christensen coming home in third place. The best New Zealand finish came from Gail Rear. Third place, 57 seconds behind the winner, and in order the Kiwis finished: Mary O'Connor, Glenys Kroon, Sue Bruce, Debbie Ellsmore and Leslie Graham. The USA won the women's team title, edging France out by just 4 points, with the Soviets third. New Zealand, second last year, this year could only manage 11th out of the 33 teams. OK, so that's how it finished in the women's race. We now go to the start line for the men's race with the 8-strong New Zealand team, headed by Rex Wilson, Ken Maloney and Dave Burridge.
Always a very, very anxious moment here for the runners, as they're so important to get a good start. They're watching the starter there. Well, perhaps not a perfect start there, but better than we've had some years in this particular event. That starting gate, again, proving its value. In this, we expect to see another close battle as we race there between the Kenyan and Ethiopian teams, both of which are determined to do well today. Kenya, the reigning champions from Neuchâtel last year. Slightly surprisingly, many people thought they won the team race then. And Ethiopia, who had dominated the team event for some 5 years before that, were relegated last year, but they want to be back on top this year. The runners just sorting themselves out, coming up to that first bend. They have an obstacle of 3 logs, one on top of the other, just around the first corner, which you do need to be able to see as you approach. It's not a very high obstacle. It's only 60 centimetres high, but having a clear vision of it is very important, and this is easily the biggest field of the day, and if you are stuck in the back of that pack somewhere, you just can't see it. So already sorting themselves out now. They'll be swinging round to the left, and I think some of them are going to have to take a very wide sweep at this first obstacle. We should see them go over it, and just before they get to it, there's a sand-filled ditch, which some of the runners were saying is a little bit disconcerting. The feet suddenly go into the sand, and then they have to propel themselves over this obstacle, and when they get the other side of this obstacle, we'll be able to see how this team race is developing. Here's the obstacle coming up now, and the Portuguese, I think it's Castro of Portugal, just leading over there. But very, very early days in this 12-kilometre race. There's a faller there on the outside. It just shows how difficult it is. As I say, it's not a high obstacle, but it is a difficult one if you aren't sighted correctly. Number 161 there is Kirati of Kenya, leading them up that first bank. This event dates back to 1903, and it was first held in Scotland, with just 4 countries taking part in 1903. And this is actually the last year that England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland will be taking part as individual countries. From 1988 in Auckland, the IAAF has ruled that it'll have to be a Great Britain and Northern Ireland team, just one team. So all of the England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland teams will be wanting to do very well. At the moment, there's Hutchings, and just behind him, Dave Clark, the 1987 national champion. But England, who used to dominate this team event, have not done so well in recent years. They haven't finished higher than 6th since 1982. Meanwhile, up in the front here, Paul Kipkoech is beginning to really string them out now. Kipkoech has decided that making a long run for home would be the best way of going about it. They're not up to even halfway yet, so this is very, very early. We saw what happened to Liz Lynch when she made an early break in the women's. Kipkoech leading his Kenyan team there in single file, and very relaxed action. Just behind him, the complete contrasting action of John Ngugi, the reigning champion. They've been running for some 20 minutes, nearly 20 minutes now, so in a race of this distance, normally the very high speed that they're operating at is enough to tire them out, but I think the combination of these obstacles, and I think there have never been as many obstacles in the World Championships as we're seeing today. This is something new, and I think it's something that we welcomed by some athletes who felt that the World Championships were becoming a little bit like an extended track race, and that the athletes who normally did well on the track often did well in the cross-country championships, whereas this is very much cross-country. Meanwhile, Ngugi and Kipkoech, side by side, have opened up a considerable it seems, on the rest of the field. This looped course, you can see the runners going past in the background. They're some way behind the leaders. And it is a little bit disconcerting sometimes to catch sight of runners going the opposite direction for the leaders, but Kipkoech still making that effort to get away from his teammate. See, there's a series of ditches and jumps, one after the other, in this particular part of the course, which in turn makes it particularly difficult. So far, most of the leading runners seem to have been keeping their shoes on, but we did have one or two cases earlier of people losing their shoes. You can see this clinging sand. That section they're in at the moment is the lowest part of the course. And with the two races having already taken place, it's very much chopped up, very wet, and very holding on the feet. The combination of the distance and the cold wind and the obstacles and that surface really are testing these athletes out. This is a world title they are competing for, and the winner will undoubtedly be able to say he is one of, if not the greatest athlete in the world at this moment. And Paul Kipkoech of Kenya, currently #1, with John Ngugi, the reigning champion, just behind him, and it seems like they are getting further and further away. The team race, the surprising thing really in the team race is the poor showing by the Ethiopians here. They dominated this team race. They had 5 victories in 6 years, in the last 6 years, and yet last year they lost to Kenya, and they were hoping to regain the title this year, but apart from Abibi Mekanan, they have no runners at all in the front part of the race here, and that'll be very disappointing for the Ethiopians. On a rough count further down the field, it looks as though England are still lying in second position, which is much better than had been expected for them. But it does seem as though Tim Hutchings, who was expected to be their leading runner, is fading back. He seems to have having some sort of problem, and is fading back down the field. Here is Mekanan, the Ethiopian, who is leading his country's bid. He's in the green vest, you can see him just in the background there, leading his country's bid to get the title back, but it doesn't look very optimistic at the moment because Ngugi and Kipkoech well clear. Pat Porter in the red vest. And Porter has always supported these championships in recent years. There's a lot of pressure on American athletes to run road races for large payments in the USA, and some of them say, well, why should we go to Europe to run in the World Cross Country Championships when we can earn some money running road races in the USA? But in fact, the prestige of an event like this is far greater than the money that they're likely to get in America. But it has always been a problem in recent years for the USA to get their strongest team out. But Porter is somebody who loves cross country. He's always done very well in it, although he has yet to emulate Craig Virgin, who twice won this title in 1980 and 81 for the USA, and that was probably 2 terrific performances which didn't get the acknowledgement they deserved at home in the USA. Both the leaders there now trying to find the best line to take. Look, they're cutting across the course there, both in search of the driest part. They're zigzagging all over the place, trying to find a good running surface, and it's becoming increasingly difficult. The Kenyans, of course, have been training at high altitude, very warm at home, and they haven't enjoyed the very cold weather we've been having in Warsaw recently at all, but it doesn't seem to make much difference to them up front here. Ngugi now trying to get away from Kipkoech, and that gap you can see is growing. They have been running for over 27 minutes now, so probably something like 9 minutes of running left, and these two still locked together. Behind them, Paul Arpin of France is moving through, looking very relaxed actually. Arpin, another French surprise really this afternoon. We didn't expect to see him that far up. McConnell of Ethiopia there. Pat Porter of the States is just behind there, and Paul McCloy of Canada. And Steve Monaghetti of Australia is also moving into the picture now. He's back around 12th position at the moment. I think fairly soon we're going to see one or two of these runners a little bit further back being lapped by the leaders. On a course only just over 2 kilometres in length, and given the very wide standard of all the competing nations here, it was probably inevitable, but I think we're going to see the leaders overtaking some people who are on the lap ahead of them. We have entries from some 61 nations this year in the World Championships, compared to just the 4 countries that were in the very first championships in 1903. The IAAF, which is the world's governing body, took over these championships, the organisation of them, in 1973 from the International Cross-Country Union, and since 1973 in Belgium, they have certainly expanded and travelled the world. See the crowd beginning to line that long finishing straight. And I think the runners will appreciate that, because it must be extremely lonely out in the further parts of the field. There are some 30,000 people here packed into the stands watching these championships, but the runners very much enjoy the feeling of the spectators close to them. They're just going past the finish there now and into this last lap. They have one more circuit of just over 2 kilometres, and there 164 is Somi Muguet with Paul Arpin of France right with him. There's McCloy of Canada, wearing number 33, Paul McCloy, 24-year-old in the Canadian Challenge. 81 there is Bruno Lechtorme of France. Dave Clark, the English champion, wearing number 51 in the white vest. Tim Hutchings there, look, moving back. It's good news for his teammates that they are still apparently holding on to the silver medal position, but for Hutchings, he'll be very disappointed in this. He was certainly hoping to be challenging for the individual title, and he was expected to do that. They just passed the 10-kilometre point there, just outside 30 minutes, so there's just 2 kilometres remaining for these 2 Kenyan teammates to sort out which of them will win the title. It seems unthinkable that anybody else would come from behind now. It must be Ngugi number 165 or Kipkoech number 160. There's Arpin of France. They will realise they're onto this last lap now, and maybe when they hear that bell ring going into the last lap, they will feel more inspired to dig a little bit deeper. And it looks like Ngugi has got away from Kipkoech. No, Kipkoech looking very relaxed, I must say. You see the thick mud on their legs there, which come from, particularly from that sandy stretch around the back. But although there is some 5 metres between them, Kipkoech is looking very, very relaxed, far more relaxed than Ngugi, the reigning champion, in fact. A beautiful action that Paul Kipkoech has got. Had a very successful season this winter. Kipkoech has won 3 races in Spain on the cross-country circuit this winter, and he looks as though he's just biding his time. We can see there's a lap runner ahead of them there. I think that may be one of the runners from Cyprus just ahead of them, but very shortly they will be coming up behind him. There's Arpin of France there, number 77 on the left in the red, white and blue of France. And that's Somi Muguet of Kenya running with him. Just behind in 5th place, that's Meknan of Ethiopia, and Masai of Kenya, Pat Porter of the USA in 7th place, and Paul McCloy behind him. Yes, the leaders now have overtaken that runner. He's not on the same lap as them. And we're getting very close to this finish. They've been running about 32.5 minutes, so they're probably about 3.5 minutes away from the finish line. They twist round those final bends there, trying to find the best line to run. Ngugi and Kipkoech, I'm sure, will want to race this out. I don't think there'll be any question of them coming in together. I think it's a matter of great personal prestige for them. Kipkoech would very much like to succeed Ngugi as the IAAF World Cross Country Champion. And it seems as though Ngugi got away slightly there again. He took a better line on that bank, but he seemed to hesitate again on that one. So every time they come to one of these obstacles, the course seems to change a little bit. There's Ngugi leading out again, and Kipkoech keeping him in sight. And I must say, of the two at the moment, Kipkoech looks the more relaxed. His shoulders still very relaxed as they go for the last time, and how pleased they must be that for the last time they go through that very muddy section. There's two of the runners from Cyprus just ahead of them there, finding it very hard. They have little more than a kilometre left, I should think, at this point, as Ngugi and Kipkoech go between the runners from Cyprus there. And there certainly seems no doubt on the team competition now that the Kenyans have so many runners packed in the front there, which is what cross-country is all about, getting your team runners up there, getting the first 6 home before the rivals. And here we are, they're coming round now with something like 200 metres to go before they come into that last home straight. Then they have a diagonal run of about 400 metres across to the finish, and it's still very much between the two of them. These are some of the back markers now. You can see the difficulty of the conditions here, very tough going, that wind's cold wind. But now Ngugi, the reigning champion, another casualty there. That's Castro of Portugal who's dropped out there. As the Kenyan team manager, they're shouting to his men, pointing the way, and I think Ngugi's gone too far to the right there. He definitely went off course briefly there. I think there was some confusion in his mind as to where he was going. I don't know whether the team manager was helping him there by shouting that out. I think he suddenly got Ngugi confused, and Ngugi lost some 10 metres probably there, and Kipkoech took the chance to nip through on the inside, and now it's absolutely straight run to the finish, and it's just between these two Kenyan teammates, and there is absolutely nothing between them. On the left-hand side, Paul Kipkoech. On the right-hand side, the reigning world champion, John Ngugi. Kenya are going to get first and second, but which way round will it be? Both 25 years old. Kipkoech on the left in the white head. Ngugi, the reigning champion, on the right. Going for that line, and who is it? I think we have the same champion as last year, John Ngugi. Yes, the officials are sending him down the finishing straight there. A terrific, and one has to say unexpected, retention of the title by John Ngugi.
Well, John Ngugi and his countryman Paul Kipkoech were officially credited with the same winning time, but Ngugi was declared winner for the second year in a row, with the Frenchman Paul Amann taking third spot. And although the best New Zealand finish was 30th by Dave Burridge, he was only 51 seconds behind the third place getter. The other New Zealanders in the 350-strong field came home in this order: Ken Maloney, followed by Rex Wilson, Greg Cameron, Dave Rush, Kerry Roger, Chris Tobin and Shane Marshall. An indication of how competitive this race was, the time difference between Burridge, who finished 30th, and Marshall, who finished second, was just 2 minutes and 17 seconds. The team's title was not surprisingly won by the Kenyans, with 3 of their team finishing in the top 6. Second, but a long way behind on points, was England, who finished just ahead of Ethiopia, and New Zealand could do no better than 14th. Okay, so that's the tale of the 1987 World Cross Country Championships, where they say, if